You think they're fine. You think they've moved on. Let me hit you with a truth most people can't stomach. Just because they're silent doesn't mean they're stable. Just because they're posting selfies or pretending to be unbothered doesn't mean they're not waking up in emotional chaos. They're not healed. They're haunted. And you're the ghost they thought they'd never see again. Let's cut the fluff. If you're still checking their page, still wondering if they're thinking about you, still silently hoping they'll come back and finally get it, they've already won. Because the cruelest form of control is the kind that doesn't require a word. They don't need to block you. They don't even need to speak to you. All they need is your reaction. Your overthinking, your stalking, your emotional hostage status. This video is not for the fragile. It's for the one who's done handing power to someone who ghosted like a coward and stayed gone like a king. You're about to learn how to break their control without ever reaching out. Understanding avoidant behavior is key. These individuals often distance themselves to protect their own vulnerability. But remember, their silence is not a reflection of your worth. It's a defense mechanism. By recognizing this, you can begin to reclaim your emotional freedom and stop playing their game. Self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. That's James Allen, and that's the exact blueprint for psychological dominance over an avoidant ex. Avoidants thrive on emotional imbalance. They disappear, not to find peace, but to see if they still haunt your mind. They want to remain an echo, a shadow you can't shake. But what happens when you don't chase? What happens when you don't even flinch? They lose the game they created. This is your new power. Unbothered silence, weaponized. Here's what most people won't tell you. Avoidants don't just fear intimacy, they crave control. And the moment you beg, plead, or explain, they win. Not because they're better, not because they're right, but because they know you're still emotionally tied to a version of them that never even existed. So let's flip the script. Let's make your silence scream. Let's make your absence louder than their avoidance. Let's make your healing their biggest mystery. No contact isn't just a strategy, it's a statement. It says, I'm not waiting, I'm not reacting, and I'm not breaking my own heart just to keep you in it. When you go silent, you give them space, not out of kindness but out of respect for yourself. You don't unfriend, you don't delete, you don't rant, you just exist differently, better, sharper, focused. And that's the kind of silence that haunts. So here's your secret mantra. Drop it in the comments if you're serious. My silence is my revenge. Say it. Claim it. Become it. Remember this. The person who cares the least controls the dynamic. And right now, they think that's them. Why? Because you cared out loud while they ran. You gave while they withheld. You felt deeply while they disappeared quietly. But now? Now you let the silence do what your words never could. You let time expose them. You let growth mock their absence. And you let peace become the weapon they never saw coming. There's a reason Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." So, don't become avoidant. Don't become cold. Become calculated. They expect drama. Give them stillness. They expect a text. Give them distance. They expect to be missed. Give them mystery. That's not playing games. That's reclaiming power. Because nothing scares an avoidant more than realizing the person they thought would wait. just disappeared without needing closure. Statistically, avoidants often return, but only when they sense you've moved on. According to attachment theory studies, over 70% of avoidant exes re-engage in some form once they believe you're detached. So, ask yourself, are you truly detached, or just pretending until they come back? Because real detachment doesn't scream, "Look at me." It whispers, "You lost me." And that whisper, it's the only thing powerful enough to shake someone who thought your heart was a revolving door. You want to know what really breaks their control? Thriving without them. Not fake thriving, not staged selfies or cryptic stories. Real, grounded, unshakable growth. The kind that doesn't need attention, the kind that happens in silence, at 6 a.m. workouts, on solo walks. In that moment, you don't reply, even when you want to. The kind that says, "I don't need you back. I needed you gone." That's the version of you they'll regret losing, not the one who chased. The real revenge. Let me be clear. You don't break their control with a post. You break it with presence. You break it when you show up for yourself harder than you ever showed up for them. You break it when you stop asking why they left and start asking why you tolerated someone so emotionally bankrupt in the first place. They walked away thinking you'd stay broken, so become the person who doesn't even flinch when they circle back. That's the real revenge indifference. Conclusion and call to action. Before we dive deeper, let's make a pact. No more emotional bargaining. No more mentally rehearsing what you'll say if they text. No more trying to make them see. Because the moment you stop needing their validation is the moment they start questioning why they ever felt superior. So, if you're ready to take back your power without a single word, stick with me until the end of this video. I'm breaking down the exact psychological levers that make avoidant exes unravel, without you lifting a finger. But first, hit like, subscribe, share this video with someone who's breaking free. And if you're really about this new chapter, join our channel membership to support deeper content like this. Drop the mantra in the comments to declare your energy. My silence is my revenge. Now breathe in. Let's reclaim your power. Stay focused. Key point 1. Their peace is just performance. Let's get this straight. What you're seeing on the surface is not real peace. It's performance. Your avoidant ex has mastered the art of looking unbothered. But don't be fooled. That silence, that emotional distance, that whole "I'm doing great without you" facade, it's not healing, it's hiding. Avoidants are actors in their own life. They don't feel comfortable showing vulnerability, so instead they armor up with indifference. They'll flood the feed with the gym selfies, travel pics, or group outings. Anything to scream, "I'm fine." But when the crowd fades and it's just them and the night, the truth hits, and it hurts. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. Their version of moving on isn't connection, it's avoidance on steroids. They bury themselves in distractions, new people, new routines, new noise, because silence makes them think. And thinking leads to feeling. And feeling leads to the one thing they've spent their entire emotional life running from: truth. See, if they were truly at peace, they wouldn't be watching your stories 2 minutes after you post. They wouldn't still have you blocked and unblocked, just to check on you. They wouldn't flinch when your name comes up in conversation. But they do. And that reaction? That subtle twitch in their gut when they see your glow up? That's not peace. That's proof. Proof that deep down, they know they messed up. They didn't expect you to evolve. They expected you to chase. Now you've become a mirror they can't look into, a reflection of everything they couldn't handle, everything they walked away from, everything they pretended didn't matter. But it mattered. You mattered. And no curated post or fake smile can cover that up. In the next point, we'll break down exactly why their detachment is starting to backfire and how their emotional coping strategy is silently working against them. Keep watching, because this next part, it's the beginning of their internal unraveling. Key point 2. Detachment is backfiring. Silence is no longer their shield. Your avoidant ex thought detachment was their secret weapon. That by pulling away they could regain control. That by ignoring you, they'd somehow feel powerful. But here's the reality they didn't prepare for. Their silence has started to work against them. What used to be their safety blanket is now becoming a prison. They created distance to protect their ego. But that same distance, it's now the loudest reminder that they're alone. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca. At first, pulling away gave them that rush of false superiority. They felt in charge, detached, cool. But detachment is only powerful when the other person chases. And you didn't. You pulled back. You didn't beg. You didn't break down. You focused on healing, glowing, and building. And now? That detachment isn't silence. It's deafening. It echoes like regret. Avoidants use silence like a sword. But the moment you stop dancing for their attention, that sword turns inward. They sit in bed at night, scrolling through your old messages. They remember how you once gave them patience, kindness, effort, and now that you're gone, all they have left is silence, and no more excuses. The greatest griefs are those we cause ourselves. Sophocles. They thought if they ghosted you, you'd spiral. Instead, they're the one checking your last scene. They're the one dreaming about you. They're the one replaying conversations they pretended didn't mean anything. Because the truth is, detachment isn't healing, it's delay. They didn't process the breakup. They postponed it. And that postponed pain? It's catching up, fast. The weight of what they didn't say. The questions they never asked. The love they never returned. It all hits harder when there's no one left to blame but themselves. So if you're wondering why you haven't heard from them, don't take it as indifference. Take it as internal chaos. Their silence is no longer their strength, it's their undoing. And in the next point, we'll go even deeper into how their need for control is starting to make them lose control. Stick around, it gets messier from here. Key point 3. Control. Was their coping mechanism, but now it's slipping. Avoidants don't move on. They manage discomfort. They try to control their world so they don't have to feel the chaos inside. And you were never just a partner. You were part of their emotional control system. But now that you've stepped out of that cycle, their whole framework is falling apart. They pulled away to feel safe. They ghosted you to feel in charge. They acted cold to protect their own vulnerability. But guess what? Control isn't connection. And once you remove the person they were subconsciously using to feel emotionally superior, they're forced to face the one thing they've been avoiding all along. Themselves. He who angers you conquers you. Elizabeth Kenny. But what happens when you stop reacting? They can't control how you show up anymore. They can't predict your moves. You're not reaching out. You're not checking in. You're not waiting. And that terrifies them, because now they have no grip, no leverage, no emotional lifeline to latch onto when things get uncomfortable, and so they spiral, not publicly but privately, overthinking, over-analyzing. They begin obsessing over your next move because they no longer own the narrative. You cannot control the behavior of others, but you can always choose how you respond. Epictetus. C. The avoidant ex doesn't miss you in the way you might expect. They miss the control they had over your emotions. They miss being able to disappear and know you'd still be there. They miss knowing they could keep you close, without ever getting too close themselves. But now you're unpredictable. You're detached. You're not emotionally available for them to manipulate. And that shift, it's triggering them more than any text you could send. They thought they could detach and still be remembered. But instead, you detached and became unreachable. That's the power they never expected you to claim. And as we move into the next point, you'll see how that loss of control is morphing into something even more dangerous for them: regret with nowhere to put it. Keep watching, because in the next section, I'll reveal the subtle ways they're leaking pain, and how you'll spot it without a single word. Key point 4. Regret is creeping in. But pride won't let them admit it. This is the part they never saw coming. The moment when their calculated distance doesn't bring them peace, it brings them pain. When their silence doesn't feel like power anymore, it feels like punishment. Because here's the truth about avoidance no one tells you. They regret silently and destructively. They won't text you, "I miss you." They won't say, "I messed up." But behind that blank expression, their mind is replaying everything. Every moment you showed up, every time you forgave, every day they took your love for granted. It's all flooding back now, not with nostalgia, but with shame. The price of greatness is responsibility. Winston Churchill. But instead of taking responsibility, they're doing what avoidants do best: internalizing, deflecting, pretending. They'll act like they're unbothered. They'll post like they're thriving. But they'll suddenly be more interested in what you're doing than ever before. They might start watching your stories again, or liking a random post from months ago by accident, or asking mutual friends how you're doing, just enough to feed their curiosity without risking exposure. They want to know if you've replaced them, if you're glowing, if you've finally become what they were too emotionally immature to appreciate. And when they realize the answer is yes, that you're healing, that you're rising, that you've reclaimed your worth, that's when the regret turns corrosive. But don't expect an apology. Avoidants struggle to own their feelings. They'd rather sabotage themselves in silence than risk vulnerability. Their pride is a prison, and they're locked inside it, replaying the what-ifs on loop. They wonder what might have happened if they'd just said how they felt, if they'd just stayed when it got hard, if they'd stopped running for once in their life. But it's too late. They made you think you were too emotional, too intense, too much. But now, without your love, their world feels too empty. Regret is an app that plays your worst memories on repeat, until you delete the illusion of control. Ace wisdom. And if you've ever felt like you were too much for someone who didn't know how to receive real love, I want you to type this mantra in the comments right now. I was never too much. I was too real. Let it echo. Let it remind you. Let it liberate you. In the next point, we're going to explore the behavioral cracks, the subtle ways their pain leaks out through patterns they can't hide. Because you will see it, even if they don't say a word. Stick around. It's about to get raw. Key point 5. Their pain leaks through their patterns, even when they swear they're fine. Avoidants are experts at pretending. But pain has a way of seeping through, especially when they think no one's watching. They won't admit they're hurting. They won't confess to missing you. But their behavior? It exposes them. Every single time. What you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Pay attention. Not to their words, but to their patterns. They might suddenly become hypersocial, out every night, living their best life. They'll jump into shallow connections, overshare online, or act impulsively just to feel something. That's not growth. That's emotional leakage. It's them trying to numb what they're too scared to face, the loss of something real. They'll binge distractions, new flings, gym sessions, nights out, overworking. They're trying to outrun the truth. But no matter how fast they move, it follows them. They had something genuine, and they pushed it away. The cracks begin to show in subtle ways. They message you out of nowhere with something pointless. Hey, saw this and thought of you. They post cryptic quotes that scream pain, but pretend it's just aesthetic. They hang around mutual circles more often, just to maybe see you, but with an excuse ready in case they do. Why? Because they're curious, because they're confused. Because the person they convinced themselves they didn't need is now the person they can't stop thinking about. People don't miss you. They miss how they felt around you. They just don't know how to admit it. Ace wisdom. Their patterns are proof. Proof that they're not over it. Proof that avoidance wasn't closure. It was emotional delay. And here's the ironic part. They thought they could ghost you and forget you, but now it's your absence that haunts their every move. Your silence has become louder than any words you could have said. They're not reaching out, not because they don't care, but because they're too proud to come clean. They'll suffer in silence before they ever say, I was wrong. So, if you're seeing these strange behaviors, understand, it's not random, it's not coincidence, it's the emotional residue of someone who's battling themselves and losing. In the next point, we'll break down the psychological reason they're still stuck on you, even if they're already with someone new. Because yes, even their rebound is a reflection of their pain. Let's talk about it. Key point 6. The rebound isn't love. It's a distraction in disguise. Let's rip the bandage off right now. If your avoidant ex jumped into something new right after leaving you, it's not love. It's avoidance wearing a new face. They didn't find someone better. They found someone easier. Someone who doesn't trigger the same emotional intimacy they ran from with you. Someone they can keep at arm's length. Someone they don't feel the need to show their full self to. It is not always the strongest that survive, but the ones most adaptable to change. Charles Darwin. Rebounds are not about connection. They're about numbing, filling the void without confronting what caused it. Because to face that pain means facing you and everything you represented. Stability, depth, accountability, vulnerability. And let's be clear, avoidants aren't wired to process those things easily. So instead of sitting with their guilt, their confusion, their buried feelings, they slap a band-aid on their brokenness and call it moving on. They don't date to grow. They date to escape. They post photos. They show off this new connection. But ask yourself, if they're so fulfilled, why are they still watching your stories? Why are they still throwing subliminals online? Why are they mimicking the same inside jokes and patterns you two shared? Because it's not real. It's repetition. They're trying to recreate the emotional safety you once gave them, only now it's with someone who hasn't seen the full storm behind their eyes yet. Rebounds aren't replacements. They're reminders of everything they still haven't healed. Ace. Wisdom. Deep down, they know. That new person can't mirror the emotional bond they had with you. They might be a distraction, but they're not a cure. Because you can't heal from emotional wounds by jumping into someone else's arms. Healing isn't a relationship. It's a reckoning. So while it might sting to see them with someone else, don't confuse visibility with value. What they show the world is not always what they feel behind closed doors. And sooner or later, when the honeymoon phase fades, when the distractions dry up, they'll be left with the same emotional mess they tried to bury. But you're rising. You're healing honestly. And that's something they can't replicate, no matter how fast they move on. In the next point, we're going to expose how their inner guilt starts manifesting in ways they can't suppress anymore. Because when avoidance fails, guilt always takes the wheel. Stay locked in. This is where it all starts to unravel. Key point 7. Guilt always shows up. Even when they swear it doesn't exist. Here's a hard pill for them to swallow. Guilt doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. And no matter how calm, cool and collected your avoidant ex tries to appear, guilt is the storm silently shaking their foundation. At first, they'll pretend like nothing happened. No remorse, no reflection, just clean exits and cold goodbyes. But guilt is a patient beast. It doesn't scream, it waits. And now, it's whispering to them every night they can't sleep. The conscience is the voice of the soul. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. They told themselves leaving you was the right move, that they needed space, that you were too much. But as time goes on and your light grows stronger, the narrative they built begins to crumble. Because how do you justify walking away from someone who only wanted to love you? You can't. And that's where the guilt seeps in, quietly, but relentlessly. It shows up as irritation, restlessness, sudden emotional breakdowns they can't explain. They might start avoiding certain songs, places, mutual friends, anything that reminds them of you. Because your memory is no longer a comfort. It's a consequence. They'll start questioning themselves. They'll scroll through old texts, rereading the ones where you showed grace, even when they gave you chaos. And that guilt? It doesn't just stay in their head. It starts affecting how they treat others. Their new partner, their friends, their family. Everyone feels the ripple of their internal torment. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. Satsams nasir sis ni hingua, but they won't admit it, not openly. To the world they'll still wear the mask, the detached, unaffected, untouchable version of themselves they've always tried to maintain. But the cracks are showing. They flinch when someone says your name. They get defensive over small things. They retreat when people get too close. Why? Because guilt isn't just emotional. It's behavioral. And it's starting to control them more than they ever controlled you. Here's the irony. They left to feel lighter, freer, unburdened. But now, They carry a weight heavier than any relationship could have ever given them, the weight of their own avoidance. In the next point, we're going to explore how they start craving closure, but not for healing. They want closure because their guilt needs relief. Stay with me. You'll want to hear this one. The truth. They'll never say, but you now see clearly, so now you know. That silence you once feared, it's not strength, it's not closure, it's the sound of them crumbling quietly under the weight of their own choices. Your avoidant ex isn't thriving. They're treading emotional water. They're smiling in public, but spiraling in private. Because losing someone who truly cared, someone who stayed, tried, gave, forgave, that doesn't fade. That follows. And while they might never say it out loud, their regret is real. Their guilt is growing. And their control? It's slipping. They thought you'd beg. They thought you'd chase. They thought you'd fold. But instead, you rose. You didn't just heal. You evolved. You broke the cycle. You chose yourself. The one who walks away in peace is always remembered by the one who stayed in fear. Ace wisdom. Before you go, do one thing. If this video opened your eyes, gave you clarity, or reminded you of your worth, hit that like button. Subscribe if you're ready to keep rising. Share this with someone who's still struggling with the silence of an avoidant ex. And if you truly want to support this work and get access to exclusive healing tools, join our channel membership and drop this in the comments right now to lock it in. Their silence won't stop my growth. Type it. Own it. Let the world and your ex's subconscious feel that energy. Next. Video. Tease. Still wondering if they're truly okay without you. Up next. 3 silent ways your avoidant ex shows they're breaking inside. We're going deeper into the psychology, the subtle cracks and the hidden signals they think they're hiding. Spoiler, you will start seeing the signs everywhere. So don't miss it. Turn on notifications. And remember this. They lost you in silence. Now silence is what haunts them. I'll see you in the next one.